David, it's Friday, and that makes it time for us to engage in some Discovery CSI. How are you today, David?
I'm very well, thank you, Jason. Good to be with you.
I hope you enjoyed Independence Day yesterday, even though you are British and hanging out in Canada, which has sort of nothing to do with, it was basically just Thursday.
Well, I encourage myself, being a Brit or a former Brit, with, and perhaps I'm teasing a little bit here because I'm not sure that you got the independence you wanted, but maybe that's another subject.
Well, it's been an important subject of our show, of course, and it's a really interesting topic because it is, while it's difficult for some people to believe or to fathom, it really seems like the most ingenious possible way to be able to control a vast empire and what better way to control someone than to have them not realize that they're under your control?
Oh, totally. And basically embrace every communications technology that comes by so that you're better informed about the thoughts of the former colony than anyone in the former colony. And then, of course, you cut deals with senior people within, America, the United States. And, of course, they stay loyal to the crown. Over to you.
Right. Right. And the type of stuff that you and I talk about, David, these are the types of things that basically advertisers don't want people to hear about. YouTube is able to at least use that excuse to shut our videos down, to, basically shadow ban us. We're just now learning a lot about how exactly YouTube does this. But part of the way that you and I have been trying to combat that effort on the part of YouTube is through the creation of our shows on Patreon, a paid subscriber-only platform where we aren't subjected to the whims of advertisers or billionaire-owned corporations like YouTube. People can watch this afternoon's show, which is going to begin at 1:30, by going to patreon.com/reverse-CSI storyboards or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You know, David, you've for several weeks, or actually even several months now, have had the beautifully designed reverse CSI scripts.com. And that is your free webpage that people can visit. It's a really useful resource because you've made this handy, easy to access playlist that has all of the different videos that you and I have done on our publicly available platform on YouTube, and those videos also appear on Periscope, on Facebook, on VK.com, DLive, etc. But of course, if people want to really get to the meat of the story, they're going to want to go to the subscriber platforms. And David, we're taking a little bit of a new tact today. We've got an image of, this is an astonishing image that I hadn't seen before you brought it to my attention. Princess Diana in the elevator at the Ritz Hotel in Paris. I guess, is it Dodi Fayed with her right there?
Not sure on that, but the two people to the left and the right are interesting characters because, as you know, they're brothers. I don't see actually that image on my screen.
Oh, yes, sorry. There you go.
Yeah, that's it, right. And what's intriguing about that, of course, she's in the elevator. I don't know if that's Henri Paul, the chauffeur, at the front of her. It might be the lift attendant. But to the left and the right, we have Rupert Soames and Nicholas Soames. And I think what we're going to be able to tell our listeners, if they pursue us through the Patreon site, is the role played by the two brothers in timing the death of Princess Diana. So that's going to be a big change, I think, for people in the UK to understand what happened to this woman.
Yeah, and one of the most fascinating things, David, that I've come to appreciate about your style of conducting an investigation or even doing a talk show that's so intriguing is that you tell us things that at first glance seem quite fantastic and almost impossible to believe, like death pool betting on these high-value target and mass casualty events. It seems absurd, but when you go back through the history, as you've told us many times, there's documented evidence of this. You've told us about White's Club in London, and we'll be getting into that quite a bit. What can we tell people who might doubt that particular aspect of the story, that there could be a death pool on these incidents, or that it might even motivate some of these incidents.
Well, absolutely. And if you look at the historical record, you find that White's Club, which is a famous raffish aristocratic gambling club that was founded in 1692 at a coffee bar run by an Italian gentleman by the name of Mr. Blanco, which translates into white. This was 4 years, 1692, 4 years after the founding of the Lloyd's insurance market at Lloyd's Coffee House. Coffee houses were a great place for sedition and plotting and making a great deal of money in London. And anyway, so White's Club today is probably the most elite club, well, let's say certainly in the United Kingdom, but maybe in the world. But they have a record of gambling and aristocrats losing vast fortunes, and of course turning themselves into mercenaries to recover it. I believe David Sterling, the founder of the SAS, was one such example. And the two brothers, Nicholas and Rupert Soames, are members of White's Club. Of course, presumably they have a very profound knowledge of gambling. Well, as an entry, I think, in the White's betting book of 1817 or 1811, which indicates something along the lines of a death pool betting, or certainly betting on someone's death, where Lord X bet Lord Y that if any Chinaman was harmed in the affair of the HMS Her Majesty's ship Alceste, then Captain Maxwell would die. Well, this is 1817. So these people were finding ways of gambling, betting on, whether someone will win or die or get married or whatever. And that brings us right forward to the topic of our show, is have they created an artificial intelligence algorithm that sets up what's known as a sports book, where people can bet on the time of death of a target, which is a very convenient way of getting around the RICO murder for hire penalty. That is, if anyone dies as a result of a murder for hire operation, then you face either life imprisonment or the death penalty. And of course, if someone says, well, I didn't buy the services of a killer to kill someone,
right,
I just put money on when she should die, we might have an explanation for Princess Diana dying at precisely, or the death being announced at 4 a.m. on the morning of August the 31st of 1997. Over to you.
Well, just to clarify one point, David, as I understand what you've told me in the past, the sports book itself is a virtual reality sports book where there's no physical location necessarily, but something along the lines of an evil bat cave at the University of Illinois in Chicago, technology that's been around since the 90s, could be used to virtually place someone inside some sort of betting environment that resembles a sports book that you might encounter in a casino in Las Vegas or Atlantic City. But of course, flash forward to 2019, and virtual reality technology that is essentially as small as a mobile phone in a head-worn piece of eyewear, this could be used to take someone to a virtual reality sports book. And as I understand what you've explained to me, artificial intelligence algorithms are making determinations about the events that are being wagered upon. And in fact, you've told us many times about Howard Lutnick's patent on interactive wagering on event outcomes. And events could be anything. It could be Willie Picton grinding up First Nations prostitutes at a pig farm. It could be a football match. It could be a bizarre and convoluted death pool bet along the lines of Her Majesty's ship Alceste, or was that the name of it? Or Alceste. Or the death of Princess Diana. As a matter of fact, these high-value target events seem to be of particular interest to these aristocrats who gamble on the lives of people as if they were raindrops running down a window or ants on a sidewalk that get stepped on their way to lunch.
Or even whether or not a lord could make love to a woman 1,000 feet in the air in a hot air balloon, apparently.
What? That was a bet.
Well, yeah, that was a bet. So
I've been searching
what's
for the
extraordinary,
betting
of course,
book, and it's hard to find. But the point I'm taking away from this is that they particularly enjoy these especially bizarre, unusual, and creative events to bet on.
and actually create the events. Because remember, our theory, which is developing as we go through this discovery process, is that there is an organization in London called the City and Guilds of London Institute that was founded in 1878, where I believe they realized by taking the trades and professions represented by the livery companies of London, they could deploy experts in different disciplines at any target, not necessarily actually killing someone, but let's say to neutralize the danger you and I pose to the conspiracy. They decide that they want to neutralize, and that doesn't mean terminate you, by sending you letters from lawyers or information technologists or people who are associated with the society or the worshipful company of newspaper makers and stationers,
Mm.
so that the people investigating these crimes can actually be neutralized and deflected through social engineering.
Yes. They're doing it quite actively, David. I have observed that, and we've spoken about it quite a bit on this show. So again, I'm fascinated by the historical connections that you are able to make, and certainly once people are educated in that history, these hypotheses become much more plausible, and in fact, in many cases, seem to be much better explanations for what occurred than the official explanations that we've heard, which seem to have substantial holes in their, credibility. So we're just going to spend a few more minutes here talking about what we will be covering today on our show. That's going to begin at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on patreon.com/reverse-CSI storyboards and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, as well as subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth. David, we're moving more and more towards a model where I don't think people will be able to rely on these free internet services to deliver them unbiased information. It seems to be very heavily swayed by advertisers, by the ideologies and politics of really left-leaning social media empires. So by keeping our show on a paid platform and keeping the cost low, people can join patreon.com/crowdsource the truth for as little as $2 a month. We try to keep that low so that as many people can access the information as possible, but we don't want to play into the den of the social engineers. They seem to have YouTube pretty locked up. They're able to do all kinds of things to thwart our progress on that platform.
Yeah, and maybe if you could just put the entry picture up, and I'll just explain to listeners where we're going to go in the Patreon part of the show. So as you can see, what I'm saying now is they always say in crime, follow the money. I'm actually saying it's far more precise from the point of view of complexity, because money now has many expressions, including virtual currency, to follow the body. So we have the body of Princess Diana, lovely woman, right? And so what I'm imagining in my mind is that above her head, or maybe attached to an earring, is a device which you might call a virtual drone that measures, let's say, her blood temperature, vital signs, etc., plus the acceleration as she is moved ultimately through a contrived accident in the road tunnel of the Pont d'Alma bridge, and ultimately past a hospital which could have treated her within a half an hour in the accident and fixed her up because she had a small lesion, right through to a hospital called the Hôpital Salpêtrière, Pitié-Salpêtrière, where her heart was massaged, totally, I'm not a doctor, totally inappropriate, given that actually she needed a transfusion, not a massage, to her death announced at precisely 4 a.m. in the morning. And that smells to me of actually a sports book betting on the time of death, because I think they wanted either the bookmaker or an insider to scoop the pot when her death was announced in the 5th hour of the morning of August the 31st, 1997. Over to you.
Yeah, I remember that evening. I was in a restaurant and heard the news. Well, David, we're just about out of time here on our preview for today's show, which is going to begin in just about 15 minutes at 1:30 on patreon.com/reverse-CSI storyboards, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Before we go, I want to remind our viewers that they can follow David on Twitter. He's over there at CSI Hawkins, and David is posting daily. He's always giving people links to our videos as well as his daily blog posts that are appearing on Patreon. So it's a good way to keep in touch with David. And don't forget to visit his website, reverse-CSIscripts.com. And David, I have just created, as of yesterday, crowdsourcethetruth.com. So people can now go to crowdsourcethetruth.com. I'm going to be increasing the capabilities of the website as time goes on, but basically people can access the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube page from there, as well as having access to direct links that allow them to join Patreon or Subscribestar, or to just become a sponsor of the channel. They can help me fight some of these social engineers as I prepare to travel to Virginia later this month for the first in-person hearing with the federal judge in the fraudulent lawsuit that's been brought against me and Crowdsource the Truth by Robert David Steele, the frequent liar and social engineer, and his totally unscrupulous lawyer, who is having some other problems in the social media sphere with clients of his who have expressed extreme dissatisfaction with his practices of law. David, I'll see you in just a couple of minutes over on patreon.com/reverse-CSI storyboards, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I'm very excited to see what we uncover today. I'll see you there in a few minutes.
Thank you, Jason. See you soon.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you on Patreon.